the resource person, senior professors, faculties, and honored participants. I am Dr. Mohammad Khalid from Bangladesh, Dhaka, Bangladesh. So you might know most of you all might know me. So anyway, today our resource person, Professor Dr. Bill Overton. Dr. Bill Overton, I'm just introducing Dr. Bill Overton. Dr. Bill Overton graduated in educational leadership at Fielding Graduate University, Santa Barbara, California, USA. Dr. Overton was awarded with Doctor of Education in January 2017. He is currently serving as educational consultant at Whole Child Education Services at Palo Alto, California, USA. He is involved in professional development, child support services, working with kids, writer and public speaker. Let's welcome to Dr. Bill Overton to deliver his valuable lecture on strategies of leadership to building community using EQ skill. So let's welcome. Now over to you, Dr. Bill Overton. Please, sir. Bill Overton, please. Are you here? আপনি ছিল তো এখন কই গেল? আমার কথা শোনা যাচ্ছে না? Can you hear me? Hello?
স্যার বিল ওভারটন স্যারের স্পিকারটা অফ আছে স্যার।
আচ্ছা, কিন্তু আমারটা শোনা যাচ্ছে?
হ্যাঁ, আপনারটা শোনা যাচ্ছে। হ্যাঁ।
আচ্ছা, তাহলে বিল ওভারটনটা অন করা যাবে না ওখান থেকে?
না, স্যারকে এমনি পোস্ট করে দেওয়া আছে তো।
হ্যাঁ,
স্যার নিজেও অন করতে পারবে।
There we go. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Please. Yes,
Okay.
please.
Right,
Go.
thank you.
Please go ahead, please.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me back again. Some of you look like familiar faces from a few weeks ago when I spoke. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. And I hope that we have some information that is important to you in the next several minutes. My name, as you mentioned, I'm going to share my screen here now, is Dr. Bill Overton. And I was basically, I was a classroom teacher for about 40 years plus, a school principal for over 5 years, administrator mentor. I have a book out called Beyond Project-Based Learning, articles in different places, speaker at conferences and other places like that. In this presentation, we're going to look at different kinds of communities and the importance of them, and how they can contribute to our world. The more I started researching these and looking at communities, the more I found that this could be a really great thing towards inner peace, social peace, and towards world peace. It all starts, though, communities all start with a need to belong, and this idea of is an intrinsic motivation form of needing to belong. It basically influences so much of what we do, from EQ phenomena such as self-preservation, esteem, relationships, social comparisons, and more. The EQ skills that go with the needing to belong are navigating emotions, quality edge, communication, empathy, sense of joy, and optimism, just to name a few. You probably know about Maslow and his pyramid of human needs. You can see in the beginning or in the middle there, the section on belonging and sense of community. He way back when thought that was really an important part of helping people to thrive. He believed that belonging is one part of one of the major needs that motivates human behavior. In fact, it actually motivates us to do all kinds of things for the good of families, good of relationships, or whatever else. It also gives us a sense of being part of something bigger. It makes it basically a reason for our own existence. And then also he found that the need to belong helps people to experience companionship and accept affection and so on for our families and our friends. I found in my research that the need to belong equates to relationships, which equates to communities. And all of these are dependent upon social emotional skills for success and longevity. We all have different connections to communities that depending on what kind of belief system you have. People typically say that humans are inherently social creatures. I tend to agree with that.
Can I interrupt, Bill?
Yes.
Could you make it full screen slideshow mode? Slideshow mode.
Sure.
Go left, slideshow.
Okay.
Yeah, slideshow. You have crossed that. You have crossed it. Yeah. It's just up, just on the top, on the menu bar.
Oh, I see. Up there? Okay.
Left.
What?
No, not this. Yeah, go up, straight up, go straight up. Yeah, this one. Yeah, click this, click on this. Click on this slideshow. Just go up, straight up on the menu bar on the left. On the left. Yeah.
That's what, this one. Okay, that's. Click here.
Can you click on that?
Okay.
Oh,
You're not
it's not here.
No, just click there, slideshow. You can see the slideshow.
Shift F5. Can you press Shift F5?
I have a Mac.
Shift F5.
I don't have an F5 here because I have a Mac.
Oh, I see. That is the. So okay, slideshow. You go up, go straight way up at. No.
There should be a TV screen image of it, icon of a TV screen on the top left.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah. That's one.
Can you click on that?
Why are you going down? Why you are going down? Bill?
You're going down. You have to go up.
Just keep it here.
Left. Yes, this one.
Click,
This one.
click. Just
Yeah.
keep it here and
Just
click.
click on this slideshow.
So why you are going up?
I really am missing
Go.
the direction.
Play from the current slide. Okay, go up once again. I'll show you. Go up. Yeah, click on that. Click on that. No, you have gone up. Little lower. Oh, no. Not this. Oh.
Usually it's not this hard.
Not this one. No.
Okay, get out of the screen and then you can resume. I can't see your slide well. Yeah. Go on to the slideshow mode on the top.
Very top up here. Okay.
Yeah. Press this.
Okay.
Yeah. And now you see play from the current slide.
Okay.
Yeah. That's better. Thank
Is that
you.
it?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that's done. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
Technology is challenging for me, so I apologize for that
No,
delay.
nothing.
No, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
It's all right. No, thank you. So as I was saying, is that there are lots of connections that we have, some innate, some other, but basically people say that humans are social animals. What's different about each person, though, is the amount of social contact we each want and we each need. And so basically that's dependent upon our personalities and unique environments. There's a biological connection too that we have is part of us. We're connected to our ancestors. When a woman is pregnant with a baby, she's carrying not only her daughter, but the start of the next generation. We can trace our biological connections back not only to our ancestors, whose genes we express, but physically actually to our grandmothers. So we're connected biologically as well to each other. The cognitive connection happens during human interactions. and involves a lot of different skills and some EQ and some others. Basically, when we are engaged in an exchange of thoughts and the sharing of ideas with another person, we feel connected. And these are all things that lead to a sense of community. The physical connection is another one. We all need touch of some kind at one age or one time or another. And what it does when we make that contact, it releases feel-good hormones like serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin. Even a simple handshake or embrace from somebody you've just met goes a long way to feeling connected. So we're all talking about communities being, ways to connect. There's a lot of research also that shows that people that are religious and spiritual have better mental health, adapt more quickly to health problems, and tend to be more resilient during times of challenge. Then there's one that I can't talk too much about because I don't know too much about it. But in recent reading, there's a quantum physics connection by some theorists that we are all connected by invisible threads that bond us. I find that one the most intriguing and part of the new sciences. I can't speak too much about it, though. It's outside my realm of expertise. Not being part of a community is dangerous. Some people go as far as to say that being lonely is toxic for humans. They did a human health insurance, the United States Health Insurer did our 2020 report and found that 61% of those people surveyed experienced loneliness. They also found since 2018 that there's been nearly 13% rise in loneliness. So basically the reasons are not enough social support, too few meaningful social interactions, poor physical and mental health, and not enough balance in our lives. The balance in our lives is something I hear people talking about a lot, is that trying to balance our families and our work lives and our physical health side and so on. And that balance is really difficult, and that can create a feeling of isolation as well. A study done by the Cigna group some time ago basically found that people that are lonely and at work tend to be less productive. They do less quality of work, higher turnover rate, and more absences at work. There are many types of communities. There are ones that are separated by neighborhoods or by states or countries or something like that. There are communities of identity by language, religion, customs, music, and so on. There are communities of interest, including solidarity for a cause. And there are even specialized communities of attention that come and go kind of as the need comes and goes. A good example is when mothers of young children get together in their own little community and talk or debrief or watch their kids or whatever, exchange babysitting duties. Study groups and book groups are another example of communities. Communities are everywhere, and we are all part of them, whether we realize it or not. People have come up with, in recent years, all these different kinds of and definitions of communities. I'm not going to go over them, but I just thought it was interesting that there's so many different kind of thoughts about the kinds of communities there are. Typically, communities are cooperative and they share the responsibilities. Typically, they're focused around a shared interest and or passion. They tend to be inclusive or voluntary. They work towards a common goal, think of others first, feel like there's something bigger than themselves. They come in all shapes and sizes, can be fluid. And the bottom one there, they encourage us to find commonalities between all of us. I think that's important. There was a study done not too long ago that found that in groups that are just forming, or communities or groups or classes or whatever they are, that if people that have been helped to see similarities between people in the groups, it reduces their stress and increases the feeling of safety significantly. I was talking about this a few weeks ago with the idea of creating a positive classroom culture. and that what you want to do is, and this is true for adult groups too, is help people just as they just enter to find people that either they know or people that have some kind of similarity to others, and it starts the community off with in a positive direction. This is my opinion, but and it evolved as I was doing the research and so on, that no matter what the concepts of EQ and social emotional learning are, I believe community building is the most direct path to peace anywhere and everywhere, from school playgrounds to towns and cities and to nations. So let me just turn it to you for a second, just to think for each person. How many communities are you presently a part of, do you think? Just defining communities as any group that is focused around or centered around a certain idea. Do you belong to a certain religion or temple or church or synagogue? Do you belong to some kind of youth group or sports groups or something like that? And you might start thinking that there's actually quite a few communities that you're already a part of. Then in each of those communities, what emotional intelligence concepts do you use in them? Are you navigating your emotions because sometimes you're frustrated or challenged by what the group is doing or where it's going? Do you basically have to practice empathy for people that have a different opinion than you do, and so on? So there's lots of EQ skills that go in each community. The longest, one of the longest longitudinal studies done started in the 1930s with Harvard graduates, and it's called the Grant Study. And what they did is that they followed these graduates for many years. In fact, the oldest people now are in their 90s, and they're even doing the research with their offspring. But what they found is that from these graduates, that the what they found is that from each person is that communities and relationships are what keeps us happy and physically healthy. That has been shown over and over again, and is still true to this day. They also found, the director found, that relationships are the single biggest predictor of life success, however you define life success. And then also is that intimate relationships are predictors of mental and physical health and longevity. So if you want to live a longer life, basically the level or quality of your relationships will help predict that. Brigham Young, BYU, here in the States, evaluated a wide number of factors that affect longevity and success in life. They looked at eating behaviors to social behaviors and so on to see how they affected the length of life. And what they found was that the social connection is even more of a predictor of longevity than not smoking, limited drinking, or good eating habits. I think that's kind of interesting. And in other studies, they found that basically people's level of satisfaction with the relationships at age 50 was a better predictor of their physical health than their cholesterol levels were later on. They also found the people that were the happiest in the relationships at 50 were the physically healthiest at age 80. And yet another study, researchers found women that felt attached to their partners were less depressed, happier 2 years later. There are fewer marital conflicts and actually had better memory 2.5 years later. The need to belong is a form of intrinsic motivation, like I said before, and is a means to connect with others and be socially accepted. And this all goes under the category of communities and community building. The thing that I found that was really interesting is that actually, while relationships are really a key factor or predictor of longevity of life, there's actually one that is even more important and stronger, and that's called social integration. Social integration is the amount, simply the amount of interactions you have daily with people who you don't know or have a relationship with. Basically making some kind of comment or greeting or whatever with the person at the market or grocery store or at the office or whatever, the people that you don't know very well, the amount of people you do that with has a huge predictor of your length of your life. So that the lesson there, say hi and connect with many people daily. I call those ripples of influence, because if you engage one person and they are delighted with it, the chance of them going out to another part of the lake or pond or whatever and passing on those positive information or positive feelings is possible or will happen. Looking at other circles and other kinds of ripples of influence, they found that humans basically have about 150 people that they are acquaintances or friends or whatever. That is actually a number that is pretty consistent through humanity, but is because of the size of our brain. What they found is that animals that have the larger the brains, the more connections they can have. Obviously, the smaller the brains, the fewer connections they have. And these are typically the averages of our circles as we go from our really special people to intimate friends and so on. Sometimes people want to look at their circles and improve them or improve the number of members in the circles. And there's a simple exercise you can do if you want to kind of look at that. And that is look at your circles and make a list of who you think is in each one. And then ask yourself some reflective questions. Ask yourself, am I contributing to each of these circles? And what are they giving to me? Also consider what each circle would look like to you ideally. Work towards those goals. And then, as I said before, increase your social integration and show interest in others. This is one way to reduce loneliness, increase other kinds of communities, and so on. I'm going to skip this one. There's so many benefits from building a positive community. You can see for yourselves their behavior issues are improved, and less crime, more academic risk-taking and engagement, better productivity, more joy and fun, increased trust, promoting political movements and when people with similar beliefs, collective learning, creating space for sharing, and so many more benefits from positive communities. And then even more, better physical health and emotional well-being, improved feelings of safety, increased access to job opportunities, which I think is interesting, increased access to affordable goods and services, having places to meet, improved social networks and relationships with neighbors, improved sense of belonging, improved sense of influence and control. All these are fabulous benefits to creating communities of one kind or another. Of course, the flip side is that, as I said before, that people see loneliness as being toxic to humans. It creates a feeling of being unsafe. It lacks street life and sociability. You reduce or lack the sense of control or purpose. You feel disconnected, and also can feel an us versus them mentality. Deepak Chopra claims that this is fundamental to conflict and upheaval. And so this us versus them mentality is not something we want to promote or perpetuate. I wasn't sure about what you wanted me to talk about necessarily. So I'll add a few other things about communities, but all of them can apply to adult communities as well. And again, I'm thinking of a community as something that I have an interest in something. And I find at least one other person that wants to get together and talk about it or research it or do some kind of action for the greater good or something like that. And so just like with adults, it's an intrinsic motivation, and it can be used to help change behaviors in classrooms or in students that are challenging. And again, it's the same kind of things of being energetic and being understanding, inclusive, getting to know all aspects of your members. I put students there, but same thing with adult communities. Know your members in different settings, not just around whatever the topic is. Greet each student or member at the door every day. Share openly. A couple other things that you can do, and again, adults can do this prior to meeting in a community. but certainly educators can too, is plan intentional ways before school starts for students to build community, to group together and get to know each other. Maybe it's playing a cooperative game. Maybe it's getting to know you parent interviews when kids first enter the classroom. Maybe it's planning projects and lessons that are where kids have to depend upon each other for success. But brainstorm possible communities that can be created within a classroom. In my classroom, we had book communities, we had writing clubs, we had math clubs, we had foreign language clubs, we had all kinds of things. And so these were all smaller communities within a larger community, and it all helps to bond. Another thing you can do is create classroom guidelines together. And again, this can be applied to adult communities, getting together at your first meeting and, ask people to state, what kind of morals and values and behaviors do we want to see in this? If you want to speak, what should it look like? What should it sound like? Practice active listening, practice kindness and thinking of others. And these are just guidelines, sample guidelines you could have with the adults in your community or with students. You can also do things together, taking a group trip together with the adults in the group or with the students. Do some volunteer work, which is great for getting people to think outside themselves. The value of community service has been documented in many studies as far as the power of reducing stress, creating, again, more connections, more bonding, a feeling of purpose, and so much more. You can also play games and eat lunch together and so on. This is a book that I used in my classroom, and basically there's several of them actually, and it's called Random Acts of Kindness. And this is just a way to acknowledge positive behaviors. And if you think about doing something for somebody else and it's random, so you don't know who you're going to do it to necessarily, or you pick somebody, and what you're going to do, maybe you are going to help clean that person's desk, or you're going to give them a cookie or a pencil or something easy. And these are random acts of kindness. They come without being predictable, and they are novel, and they definitely attract people's interest and attention and reinforce great behaviors. There's another way that you can do it with kids as well. Both these books are available online, and they're very simple, but I always believe that even picture books are really good for adults too. And then one thing, again, for any kind of community, classrooms and otherwise, is to communicate with each other. Do it formally at your meetings, but also, talk informally with the members separately or online or, by phone or whatever. Just chat and ask what's on their minds, and it can be, again, about the topic and the purpose of the community, or it can be just checking in with how people are doing. The ability to both see others and feel that you're being seen by others is really important. And so that basically everybody wants to be seen, everybody wants to feel like they are known to others, and that they are valued and contributing members of whatever group or classroom or community they belong to. Another thing you can do, both again with adult communities or classrooms, is do a long-term project. I based this book, the book I wrote, on that principle, and it can be around historical event. It's integrated. You can learn lots of different things. But another things you can do is rehearse and perform a play, or learn a song together, even if it's not singing and music is not your focus of your community. It's something you can do. Novelty attracts the brain to learning and also to bonding with others. So again, to simple ways, pick a topic or cause that's interesting to you. Invite one other person or more people to start and meet and come up with your guidelines, discuss group guidelines and attendance, and make sure that at each meeting you're checking in with each other on not only the progress of the group, but also on what their life situation is and how things are going there too. Again, trying to have people feel like they're connected and they're seen. To continue the idea of practicing, these are some of the EQ skills that are involved with this. You know, practicing positivity and awareness of body language, optimism, leadership, being consistent, having integrity, practicing empathy, knowing yourself. These are all EQ skills that go with being part of a community. And finally, I mean, it's all about relationships. Everything is. I found that some of the relationships I have with people that I, really never had relationships with before has really benefited me and others in lots of great ways. One example is my mechanic. I've been going to the same mechanic for my car, for years. I don't see him a lot. I don't go there very often. But because with that social integration, we talk about things a little bit, while he's fixing things or while I'm giving him the car keys or whatever. And it really helps to have a relationship. And, when you have a relationship with somebody, you tend to want to do things for them, and both, to you and from you. And so it's really been a meaningful relationship. And again, I wouldn't expect it with a car mechanic, but it is a really interesting and really positive thing that I'm involved with. Again, the shortest way between the world now and one at peace is start with you. Start with what you're interested in, the passions you have, and then ask 2 or 3 more people to join you. And then ask a few more people in your neighborhood to join you. And then you do that enough, you have cities and nations at peace, and then ultimately you have world peace. Again, communities, this is all review, but communities can contribute to a lot of things. They can contribute to better physical health, better mental and emotional health, less depression, better quality relationships, less stress, fewer conflicts, increased feelings of safety and control. Personal and small group behavior changes can occur because of communities. Large and small scale social changes. Also, less work turnover by employees, better work productivity, happiness, less loneliness, longer lives ultimately, and peace of different kinds, whether it's inner peace, social, national, or world. And also is that they can be used to address depression and other psychological concerns. You can use them to increase positive classroom management and school cultures. You can use them to reduce crime and negative behaviors. You can help them to help couples with counseling. You can help improve productivity in the work environment. Some of this has already been said, but I think it's worth repeating it and showing that really the value of communities. As I was saying at the onset that, I found with doing this presentation and preparing for it and doing the research that communities are just such a key ingredient to making progress in our world, but also inside myself, as well with my family, with people around me, and using them as a medium for making larger progress and towards a positive direction is really important and really valuable. Again, as I said before, I think that communities, are more important in some ways than just even the EQ skills by themselves. Mother Teresa was known, of course, for saying many brilliant things. I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. And this is the ripples or the ripples of, ripples of influence or whatever you want to call them. And that's all I have for right now. And I'll take, if there are any questions, I'd gladly take some right now.
Hello, participants. Do you have any questions to ask to Dr. Bill Overton, please? Anurata sir, aten. Mr. Tapas Barman, are you here? Okay. So If you have participants, please, if you have any question, please ask. Bengali you can ask, I will translate it to Hindi, I will translate in English, or you can ask directly English to Bill Overton, please.
Right, that's okay if there are any questions. I welcome any kind, this is some of my my resources. I welcome any kind of messages from my email or through my website or even through Q4Ps. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and comments. Communities are kind of something that we kind of take for granted, I believe, and I think that they can and maybe even should play a larger role in our lives than they do presently. And with that, I will leave you and thank you for inviting me and giving this opportunity to share a little bit of something that I think is pretty interesting. And, you know, well, I wish you all well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Bill Overton. You have delivered very specifically and very nice. That will facilitate us to go through. We'll go through the. Please also hand over. I've already written to you the to over your PPT to my email ID. You can find out in the messenger. So thank you, sir, for your valuable lectures. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
For giving us your valuable time. Okay, thank you.
That's fun. It's always fun talking about things that are important, I think, and this is some of them, at least for me. Like the last anything to do with classrooms is important to me. All right, thank you very much, you guys,
Thank
and
you.
I will.
Thank
you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. He's the secretary of this organization.
All right. Bye bye.
I am same like you, but he is the main. Taposh Mormon is the main organizer, and his team as well. So we have free time. So just our next lecturer, Professor Dr. Stephen W. Oliver already arrived. So I think Taposh আমরা কি start করবো? We have on more 24 minutes. কিছু অন্য কথা বলি বলেন, আপনি বলেন না বাংলা আমি ইংলিশ করে দিচ্ছি, কিছু কথা বলেন।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, স্যার ওনাকে আগে পোস্ট করে দিয়ে স্যার।
কোনটা? বিল ওভারটনের পিপিটি?
না না, ওনার তো হয়ে গেছে। হ্যাঁ, পিপিটিটা একটু শেয়ার আমাদের এখানে পাঠিয়ে দিন।
হ্যাঁ, আমাকে পাঠান। আমি চাইছি আজকে দুইটা স্টিফেন প্লিজ গিভ মি ফিউ টাইমস টু ডিসকাস উইথ দ্য অর্গানাইজার। তো আমি চাইছি ওই যে ম্যাটেরটা পাঠাইছি কালকে রাত্রে, ম্যাটেরটা পাঠাইছি কালকে রাত্রে, আমারটা আজকে সকালে মর্নিং আই ফরওয়ার্ডেড টু ইউ মাই পিপিটি and that was forwarded to me yesterday and night I forwarded to you. দুইটা পাঠিয়েছি and you can ask Dr. Pyle to transfer to you directly or I will ask. So okay, আমার মনে নেক্সট অলরেডি এসে গেছে। সো
হ্যাঁ স্যার, ওনাকে পোস্ট করে দিয়েছে স্যার।
আচ্ছা, শোনা উনি অলরেডি চলে আসছে, প্রফেসর অলরেডি দিয়ে রাখছে। ওকে, let me introduce our next lecturer, Professor Dr. Stephen W. Oliver. Professor Stephen was awarded with Doctorate of Education at University of Pennsylvania, USA. Dr. Stephen also studied at West Virginia University, USA. Professor Stephen has been associated for more than 40 years in teaching profession in senior most level. Let's welcome Professor Dr. Stephen W. Oliver to deliver his valuable lectures on strategies, leadership for rehabilitation in the community. Thank you, sir. Now over to you, sir. Please. You are most
okay,
welcome.
well, good afternoon. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon to everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me. Thank you, Dr. Khalid, for having me come. Thank you to Mr. Matt Hurlstein and to all of you. It's an honor to come and speak to you today. And so, as you just said, I am a professor and consultant. I teach at the University of Pennsylvania in the United States and also the University of Virginia. I teach a variety of courses. I teach leadership, I teach human resource management, and I teach emotional intelligence. And I teach to a variety of students. I teach to nursing students, I teach to allied health students and MBA. So I have the honor of teaching to a variety of different students. I also teach at a smaller university, Wilmington University in Wilmington, Delaware, and I teach to students who work in social services, and I teach some social services classes. So I have a real variety of students that I teach to and a variety of topics and things. So today I wanted to just share with you a little bit of information about effective leadership. Hang on one second. Okay, so I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about effective leadership. I give these courses in, I teach these courses, leadership, in many of the classes. And here are just a few things that I wanted to review to you today. I'm not sure it's very academic. It's really more anecdotal. And it's just some basic things that you can consider in some of your leadership roles. You know, leadership is really challenging today, and you may have already discussed this in some of the other presentations, but we are in a very chaotic world. We're in a world where there's lots of change going on. And to be a leader in any type of an organization, especially a rehabilitation organization, you have to deal with change, and you have to deal with employees coming and going. Many employees today are not engaged. They're not excited about their jobs. So how can you, as the leader, motivate them, engage them, try to get them to stay at the organization? It costs so much to hire an employee. And so how can we come up with strategies to keep employees engaged and motivated? So I just wanted to go over a few things with you today, a basic statement about effective leadership, and then 4 basic strategic leadership thoughts. Again, these are very simplistic. So I wanted to talk a little bit about communication skills, talk about emotional intelligence. And I know Mr. Matt Pearlstein has talked about emotional intelligence, but I'll just give you a basic view of that. Focusing on your strengths. Who are you and what are your strengths? And then some decision making for leadership. So that's a lot of information, but I'll try in this brief moment with you to talk about these. Let's see here. All right, so just a couple of thoughts here. It determines how successful an organization and their teams are. Effective leadership requires leaders to call upon leadership styles and techniques to drive a company's growth and innovation. Leaders are at all levels are expected to be able to step up in a range of circumstances. No successful organization would be there without effective leaders. A leadership quote from one of our presidents, John Quincy Adams: if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. So these are some important things to consider. Now, let's just talk about effective communications. I have to tell you, in my career right now, I've been working a long time, and I've been teaching some basic fundamental things years ago: communications, customer service, team building, conflict resolution. And those topics are coming back now today. We have a new cadre of leaders, a whole new younger leaders, millennials, Gen Z. But then older leaders need to be replenished on their skills. So it's just really interesting to me how many new leaders there are, and these older topics are coming back. We need to revisit. Some of them don't really go away. I gave a corporate presentation a year ago. It was a large manufacturing company, and it was on basic effective communication skills. And so when I got ready to present, all the very senior leader people were there: the CEO, the chief financial officer, the chief human resources officer, vice presidents. And I said to the CEO, "Sir, this is very basic. Are you sure you want me to talk about the basics?" He said, "Stephen, we do not talk to each other. We work in silos. The communication skills here at this company are awful. So start talking, start teaching." I was shocked, but again, some of these things don't go away, and we need to be renewed. So just basically, effective communication is between two people or two entities. It's about organizations, it's about computers, it's about transmitting information. It's about when we talk face to face or on a mobile phone, or when someone is reading a letter or an email or a text. But for effective communication, a message must be sent and must be received, and there needs to be acknowledgement of that message. So this is very simple, but it's important for effective leadership to have effective communication skills. Here is a model. This has been around for years, but it's good to look at it. We send a message, and then there's a channel we send it through. Is it through a phone or a phone call or in a meeting? And then there is meaning in that message sent, and then someone receives it, and then they're decoding it. But there's all kinds of noise. And think about the noise in your brain. Think about what you are thinking about right now as you're listening to me. You might be considering what's going on at home with your family, what you're having for lunch. And so it is really important to understand this noise that gets in the way. Now, I live in a big city, and there's noise outside. Cars, buses, trucks, helicopters. I live near a hospital, people walking by. And when I'm trying to teach on my computer, that's noise. So we need to be aware of the fundamentals of communication skills. Now, what makes communication difficult? There's a lot of things that make communications difficult. I won't describe all of these, but it's important to be aware of this. If we have a bias about somebody or a stereotype or a prejudice, that can get in the way of listening. Words mean different things. Here in the United States, we have different names for a sandwich or different names for a Coca-Cola. People call it different things: a pop, a soda, a Coca-Cola. It's the same product, but they're different names. People have different perceptions. The famous story of an accident in an intersection. 8 people see that accident. If you interview all 8 of them, you'll get a different perception or a different story. We hear what we want to hear. My favorite story of that is, I have a cousin who's younger. He has a girlfriend. They've been dating for many years. We came to a family dinner party, and they were making an announcement, and everybody at the side of the table where I was sitting was, "Oh, they're getting engaged. They're getting married. We're all so excited. Yay." And they're like, no, we got a dog. So we hear what we want to hear. Now, luckily they got married later, have 2 children and more dogs. But, you can hear what you want, and this makes communication difficult. Making assumptions. Feelings and emotions. This is where the emotional intelligence comes in, or the lack of emotional intelligence. Emotions can get in the way of you hearing or communicating. You can be very frustrated and angry and communicate not in your best self if you're frustrated. And then communicating without words. Many people use their hands, their facial expression, their body, to communicate. And this can make communication very difficult. Again, this is all simplistic. This is not necessarily highly academic, but it's important to remember for leadership to be aware of this and be sensitive to what gets in the way. Now, again, the emotional intelligence piece here is communicating is really about these emotions. When you're communicating, you're talking about love, anger, hurt, shame, fear, self-doubt, joy, sadness, jealousy, gratitude, loneliness. All of these emotions come in when you are speaking. And again, communications can go wrong, especially in meetings or with loved ones or with business associates or with clients. It can go very wrong if some of these emotions are impacting. So to become a better leader, we need to listen. And we need to think about why we don't listen. This is a big problem in our world right now. I attribute why we don't listen is a lot of these phones, mobile phones, computers, we're distracted. As I said earlier, that noise can get in the way. We're not paying attention. We're not listening to people. And so what you want to do is try to have active listening. Try to really actively listen to the person. Try to slow down, stop, and listen. Reflect their feelings, ask questions, paraphrase. So is this what I heard you say? So is this what happened? Let me summarize. Now, someone might look at you like you're crazy, and that's a reality, but it's really important to say, let's slow down and let me summarize what you were saying. Interjecting, to be careful. And the question is why do we talk over each other? And if we had more time, I would ask you, why do we talk over each other? That's really, really powerful in America. We talk over each other, men and women, old and young. And I have come to the conclusion is we want to be heard. We're not listening, so we want to be heard, and we talk over each other. It's very, very, very powerful. And we all want to be heard. Yes, someone put that in there. And so, whoops, I'm sorry, I'm going the wrong way. And so we want to try and listen. Body language, again, is important. I used to work at a hospital. I worked at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. And when I would go into the hospital, I would see parents with their children who were very sick. And I would say, "How are you today?" Their heads were lowered and bowed, and they would say, "We're fine, we're okay." But the nonverbals told me, no, they were not. They were frightened, they were scared, they were confused. It is really hard when you are sick yourself, but when your child is sick, you have no control, and it's very frightening. And so you want to look at the body language. You can talk to a colleague, a patient, a client, and see that body language and how they are. Reflect their feelings and acknowledge. Active listening is not interrupting. It's not finishing people's sentences or statements. It's not cutting off people. It's not hijacking their speech, meaning interrupting or trying to interpret what they're saying. I mean, you can ask questions, but you're not trying to take over what they're saying. Becoming distracted. And again, it's so really frustrating when you're in a meeting and people are on their phone or they're looking away. If you don't ask questions, if you don't clarify, that's not active listening. So to become a better listener, again, you want to concentrate on everyone. Look at the facial expressions, eye directions, movement, and body language. And your eyes, your voice, your gestures, your posture, your tone of voice, as you enunciate. Now, I use my hands a lot. That's just who I am. Others don't. Sometimes I have to put them down because that can be distracting. Reflect the information you hear. Again, paraphrasing. Did I hear what you said correctly? Let me clarify. Can I ask you? and then try to get more information and try not to pass judgment or change the subject. Listen through. And this is very hard. We're in a fast, busy world, and it's hard to slow down. And some people might get frustrated when you're doing these things, but it's important to become a better listener as a leader. The other thing is constructive feedback. So I always ask, well, what is it like when your boss says, I'd like to give you feedback? So my friend Matt Perlstein, when I say, why do I have some feedback for you. So Matt, what do you think when I ask you that? Are you there? I don't know if you're there, Matt. Maybe not, but if I ask Matt, I want to give you feedback, he might say, oh, wait a minute, am I in trouble? Is there a problem? But feedback is a way to give someone some good constructive feedback and to really tell them what they're doing well and then be honest about what they may not be doing well. It's clear, it is clear, it's specific. And hang on one second, let me go back here. Oops, I'm going the wrong way, I'm sorry. Okay. Oops, there we go. I'm sorry, I went the wrong way. So constructive feedback is about being clear, being specific, not attacking, not being judgmental or malicious, not giving just solutions. Let's end the conversation. It's about listening and partnering with that person. And it's about a time to get something off your chest, but yet have construction and not vent, whine, complain. It's not about complaining and criticism. The benefits of active empathetic listening is building trust, enriching relationships, and trying to have some productivity, job satisfactory, and then also creating peace in the workplace. Part of EQ for peace is creating peace around the world, but we want to truly start with peace in our own workplaces. And as a leader, if you can listen empathically, listen with empathy, understanding, walk in the shoes of that other person, that employee or your clients, it can really be a good experience for peace and for a good organization. So that's just a little bit about the communication skills. Now I wanted to do emotional intelligence, and I know that Matt Perlstein has talked about emotional intelligence, but just a couple of things I wanted to reinforce from his talk. So what is emotional intelligence? Well, emotional intelligence increases through our lives. It's about maturity, people skills, behavior change. Emotional intelligence is about increasing your leadership effectiveness. Again, as a strategy for leadership, you want to understand your emotional intelligence and to have emotional intelligence and the intelligent use of your emotions. That is from Dr. Daniel Goleman, who is a doctor of psychology at Harvard University and his own organization. I call him the grandfather of emotional intelligence. But for effective leadership, you want to use emotional intelligence. Now, here is a pretty lengthy definition of emotional intelligence from Dr. Goleman, but this always resonates to me when I am talking about this in my classes. So Dr. Goleman says, emotional intelligence is the capability of individuals to recognize their own emotions and those of others, to discern between the emotions and to discern between different feelings and label them appropriately, use emotional information to guide thinking and behavior, and manage and adjust your emotions to adapting to environments and achieving one's goals. So that's a lot. That's a really big statement. But if we break that apart, again, for effective leadership, you need to understand emotional intelligence. What are your emotions? What are the others? What are you feeling? What is someone else feeling? How can we try to label them appropriately? That doesn't always work, but try our best. And then how can we use emotional information to guide our thinking, our behaviors, and manage and adjust those in any environments? And so for a leader has to be able to adjust his or her environments every day based on what happens. So when we're trying to look at emotional intelligence, we're looking at our emotional quotient. And your emotional quotient is different from your IQ, and it's about flexibility, empathy, and awareness. To me, empathy is one of the most important pieces to emotional intelligence. How can you walk in the shoes of someone else? Now, 2 years ago, I gave an emotional intelligence class to undergraduates, 18, 19, and 20-year-old young people. And I said, can you walk in the shoes of someone else? And one young man said, Dr. Oliver, I can't walk in the shoes of someone else. I don't have enough experience. I don't know how to understand the other person. He had a point, but I said to him, can you do your best to understand where that person is coming from? And what's even harder is if you're in conflict or you're angry from that person. It's very hard to try to understand someone who you are mad at or angry with. But if you can do that, that's great. Emotional intelligence helps us through challenges and change. And we've been through a lot of change in the past 2 years. Very quickly, I know you've been through this, but the components of emotional awareness are your personal competence and your social competence. So in that personal competence is self-awareness, being mindful, taking control, and self-managing yourself. And then the social competence, being aware of others, looking around, and the relationship management. And so let's just real quickly look at all four, and then we're going to talk about Strengths Finder. So your self-awareness is really being in tune with your emotions, knowing your strengths, your weaknesses. But why is it so hard for us to acknowledge our weakness? Why is that so hard? And our response is we really don't want to. We really don't want to show that we have negativity or a weakness. This comes especially when I'm talking about an interviewing. I give an interviewing class in one of my classes, and people don't want to talk about their weaknesses. But if you can be vulnerable and share your vulnerability, that can be a strength. Understand who is punching your buttons, meaning who makes you mad or frustrated. A person, it can be your husband, your wife, children. Children will do that all the time. Siblings, my sister punches my buttons. I've known her for 60 years and she can punch my buttons. She's good at it. And then how do you modify and motivate? That's the self-management. So the awareness is being aware of your trigger points, those people who can make you frustrated. And then the awareness, the management is how do you manage and regulate yourself? Now, sometimes it's okay to get angry and frustrated because there may be something really important to stand up for yourself. But be careful about this and use that very judiciously. Then there's the social awareness. Again, as I said earlier, the empathy for others, walking in their shoes. The other thing is when you go into a meeting or you go into a client meeting or you come home, what's the energy like of the people around you? So being in tune in that environment. I always do that in my classes, even my online classes. I always check in and say, hello, how are you? How's it going? That way I can be in tune with the energy of the students to see how successful our night will be. And again, having respect. The last component of emotional intelligence is relationship management. To me, the most important is how do you build community? As leaders, we have this responsibility to build community, to influence others, and to persuade, lead, and try to get, as I said earlier, your employees motivated, supporting others. You use this through all of your emotional intelligence skills. So again, these 4 components, self-management, social awareness, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management, all 4 of these go together to work towards a skill and a strategy for leadership. Understanding who you are. If you don't understand who you are, it's hard to be a leader. So understanding who you are, your values, and what makes you tick and what makes you frustrated, get that understanding and then work towards the others, the individuals and the relationships. So that's just a little bit of some antidotes on emotional intelligence as a strategic tool. So now I have just 2 more. The next one is strengths. Strengths. And one thing, you may have heard of this book, you may not have. This is Strengths Finder by Don Clifton and Tom Rath and the Gallup. It's a short book, and in the back is a survey, and you take a survey of your strengths. And so the premise of Dr. Don Clifton is that you need to focus on your strengths. So many people focus on their weaknesses. And a lot of times we are taught that in school, especially elementary school, high school, early college. We are beaten up a lot by the things we don't do well. I know that I was beaten up for not doing well in math. I would get an A in psychology, an A in English, a B in history, and then a C or a D in math. And my parents always beat me up for that. And I've never been good at math. And so I used to put a lot of energy into math, and it just didn't work for me. So Don Clifton's premise is to put your energy into your strengths. So again, this is Don Clifton, who is the founder of Strength Finders. And this is Tom Rath, who has written the book from Gallup. And I will type that in just a little bit. But the whole goal here for a strategic goal for leaders is to focus on your strength. What are your behaviors, your tasks, your actions that you do well? If you put more energy into that, your knowledge, your proficiencies, you can do a little better. People who use their traits and ability can work to relate with others and achieve goals. And they're also good to build on their strengths. So try to put more energy into your strengths. Now, we all have weaknesses, and you have to be aware of your weaknesses. But if you put that energy into those weaknesses, you may not be effective. And so the more we know about what makes us tick, the more success, the more of a chance in life we have for success. If you can better understand who you are, that's where you can put your energy and to make you happy, and also have peace within yourself. If you're trying to put your energy into areas that you don't do well, then that can really work towards you not being very, effective. Now, we don't have access to the chat box, but I'd like for you just to take a minute. Think about what your strengths are. Are you good at math? Are you good at being kind? Are you a good listener? Are you good at communicator? Or do you bake? Do you cook? Do you exercise? Do you love pets? Do you love children? Are you a writer, an artist, a caregiver, a community activist? I ask you to think about what your strengths are. What are you good at? And to do that. So what are your strengths? It's important to do that. So many people during COVID found other strengths. A lot of people could not leave their homes, so they found a lot of strengths. I learned a lot of people who could cook and who were good bakers. And so I was like, bake some food, bake some cakes, cookies, and let me sample. So again, Don Clifton says, says that strengths are what we do well, our talents. Doing these things are in our wheelhouse, meaning that it comes natural to us. But also we need to practice them. We work hard, Do them over and over, and that's how you hone your skills. So you look at some of the famous athletes around the world, soccer players, football players, tennis players, musicians. They don't just do that. Now, a lot of them have natural ability, but they practice over and over. So whatever your passions are, practice them, get energy and do them over and over. So put your times into this. Putting your time into that can bring you joy. Don Clifton also says, try not to put your time and energy to those things you don't enjoy, because they might bring you down. If you put time into that, it may definitely bring you down. So I want to move a couple of slides ahead and talk about being blindsided by your weaknesses. So his premise is to put your talent and energy into your strength, but don't be blindsided by the things you don't do well. Again, I'm not good at math, but I get people to help me with math and statistics. I have to do a lot of reports on my classes at the end of the semester. So I get someone who's a good statistician to help me. Why don't we ask for help? A lot of people don't want to do that. And so the issue is to try and be aware of these. Do not be blindsided. So whatever your weakness is, get help with that. If you don't, it may come back to, in a way, make you not as effective as a leader. All right. So embrace your weaknesses. And here is, you can get help. And so get guidance from someone you trust. Have them help you. Help them to get you be prepared. You can even hire them, get advice, breathe. Just breathe is another thing. Sometimes we just need to breathe and say, I'm not good at this. I will get help. And again, try not to beat yourself up. Try not to criticize yourself. I think we are our own best enemy. Yes, know what your weaknesses are. Really, truly know those weaknesses, and then try to let go of that, get help, and be more prepared. So again, knowing your strength, putting your time and your energy into your strength can help you to be a better leader. And then also, if you're in a leadership role, hire people who are good at your weaknesses. Hire people around you to help you so you can rise to the occasion and be better, and get them to explain those things. So the last antidote, or the last thing I wanted to talk to you about, is decision making. And I'm sorry that these PowerPoints are a little bigger here, but why is it so hard for us to make a decision? Why is that so hard? Decision making is the process of identifying and choosing alternatives and looking at our values, our preferences, our beliefs. So how do we make a decision? We make thousands of decisions every day. Getting up. Do I have coffee? Do I have tea? Do I have juice? Do I have water? What do I have for breakfast? What do I wear? I get to my office. I get to where I work. How am I going to interact? What do I do? Do I do paperwork? Do I do work on the computer? Do I talk to my staff? Do I talk to my patients? Do I talk to families? Who do I talk to? What do I do? We make thousands of decisions, even getting to work, however you get to work. And so decision making are fundamental, and they are about choosing the best possible choices or options that connect. And decision making can be a mental process also, about everyday decision making processes. So what's that decision process that we're making? And so I would ask you, what are some major decisions you have to make right now in your life? What are those? And think about them, and how are you approaching them? So making a decision as a leader can be critical to your job. The decisions that you make can impact a lot of people in the workplace and your clients. And so you want to make sure that you are critical in your thinking about it, and that as you progress in your career, decisions may be more critical to your customers, your patients, family members, your organization. Now, there's no real single way to go about it. There's many models out there. There's lots of models. I'm going to show you a quick 7-step model, but it's about being really thoughtful in making decisions. It's about your judgment, using sound judgment in your decisions. Again, things are very rapid and fast-paced. So what's the knowledge do we need? There's so much data. Sometimes there's a term called analysis paralysis, and people get so shut down because there's too many things that they have to put into that decision, too many variables. And some people can be paralyzed by making that decision. So know what's needed, what's the data, who are the stakeholders, and then what's the responsibility, and then try to make sure you have steps in making this decision. It can be difficult, but making a sound judgment is important, even though it's difficult. Using sound judgment as a leader can be really important in different situations. And you want to just make sure that you're progressing and you're trying to think of foreseeable things and what's critical. So I'm not sure how much time I have, but I just have a couple more slides here. So just a few more things here. So one thing, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, please, no problem.
Okay, just have a few more slides here.
Okay.
So here are just some guidelines for making decisions. And then I have a 7-step, I'll go over those quickly. But again, be aware of your style. What's your style of making a decision? Follow a process, communicate the different levels of decision, who's there, what are the pitfalls, and the pitfalls mean what are the negatives, what can come out of that. And then you want to look at quantitative data, statistical data, and then also qualitative. What are the people? What are your instincts? What's the emotional? That's that emotional intelligence. Because again, emotions can come into making decisions. So that's the qualitative. What's the best alternative? How can we make everybody happen? So here's a 7-step decision making. I won't go into all of these in detail, but you can use a process. This is just one. Identify the decision. Gather all the information. What are the alternatives? Weigh your evidence. What are your evidence? Choosing among those alternatives. But this is really key, taking action. And this is where number 6, a lot of people get into trouble because they are so afraid of this. They're really afraid of this. But sometimes you just have to take action and then review your decision. Did it go well? Did it not? A lot of times we make mistakes and we have to go back. So I won't go over all of those. But again, being a leader is never easy. It's not easy being a leader. It's not easy being a leader. So I hope these 4 things helped out. And they're, again, fundamental, basic communication skills, going back and reviewing emotional intelligence. Who are you? What are you about? And then other people, empathy for others, and building community. And then your strengths, focusing on your strengths, but yet not being blindsided about your negatives, being aware of that and getting help with that. And then decision-making, understanding decisions and being very prudent, having a good judgmental, ability about that, and using some type of a model. Better leadership skills can be working with better relationships. And better relationships can lead to peace within your organization. And if you have peace, people will stay, they'll be loyal, they'll have respect for you if you have better, sound, strategic leadership skills. Now, these are just 4. There's many more out there. So a final slide is elements of successful leadership to develop a strategy can include these things. Making sure you've got executive support. So whoever is at the top, you're getting support. What are the needs of your organization? Really know the needs of your organization, your clients, your customers, your patients. Leadership starts with competency. So those are 4 competencies I gave you today. But the other thing is change management. Everything changes, things change. The past 2.5 years, we have all been through change, and it's not going to stop, folks. It's going to continue to go forward. How do you evaluate what you're doing? You need to evaluate regularly, and then have a culture within leadership competencies. What are the culture that you're looking at to make sure that you're doing these things well? You are leading. And again, it's so important to listen. I think, to me, of anything I've said tonight or today, is listening. Are we listening to people? That, to me, is one of the most important takeaways. So that's basically it. I thank you for this. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hello. Hello, honored participants. Do you have any question to ask to Dr. Stephen? You can ask. You can ask in either English or Hindi, or I will translate to English. No problem. বাংলা বললে বাংলা বলেন, আমি ট্রান্সলেট করেছি। হিন্দি বললে হিন্দি বলেন, I'll translate to English.
স্যার,
হ্যাঁ
স্যার সবাইকে আনমিউট করে দিচ্ছি স্যার।
আনমিউট মানে শেষ?
না না, আনমিউট করে দিচ্ছি আর কি।
আনমিউট করে দেন। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, ঠিক আছে করেন। 5টা মিনিট সময় দেন। ওকে।
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yes, thank you so much. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, sir, I am Lavina Sengupta from Kolkata. I want to discuss a thing with you, that feedback can be confusing and considered as criticism. What to do about that?
So what can be considered as criticism?
Yeah, feedback. Sometimes people give feedback.
Yeah, that is a great question, because like I said, when your boss says, I want to give you feedback, we immediately go to, here's criticism. Criticism is coming. And so what I recommend is create a culture in your organization where you're giving feedback all the time. And you want to talk about honest things. You want to be honest. Here you're doing really well. Here's an area you need to develop. And so you want to make sure you're giving both positive and developmental feedback, but you're creating this culture where it's not a surprise. And so you have to do this all the time. Now, this is additional work as a manager. Being a manager is a lot of work. But if you create this culture of giving feedback, it won't be a surprise, and it won't always be so shocking to people. If you're doing this on a regular basis, it won't always be something that's surprising. So I hope that helps in an understanding for you.
Hello, sir. One more question.
Yes.
Yes. Decision making is very difficult. Okay. For me, it's very stressful. As I have many choices, and none of them are wrong. While making decisions, we cannot make everyone happy. What to do about that?
Well, you're right. We cannot ever make everyone happy. You have to look at all your alternatives. You have to look at the organizational goal. You have to look at all the stakeholders, but you have to really clearly think about what this decision is and make that decision and stand by it. And yes, some people are going to be unhappy, but I think if you can clearly explain how you made this decision, how you clearly thought it through, how you clearly rationalized it, and communicate to people. This goes back to communication. A lot of times leaders and organizations make decisions and they don't explain. It's like, we're doing this new process, and you're kind of like, what, huh? But if you can involve people in that decision, that's great too. A lot of times managers don't ask questions, especially the frontline people and the work they're doing. They just make decisions about frontline processes, and it's really not fair because they're doing the work, and they know better than you what's going on that front line. So ask them questions and give sound communication, sound rationale, and then make it. Again, not everyone's going to be happy, but as a leader, you have to be strong and firm. Now, it's not always easy, but you have to just make a decision and not reverse that unless it's something that's not working. Sometimes it doesn't work and you have to change it, but just really be clear in the communications and the logic and reason to people. That can help, but there's always going to be someone in your organization who's unhappy. That's just the way it is in life.
So one last question. As I am a special educator, I especially work with children with autism. For them, emotional intelligence is very difficult for them. I feel very helpless when they are unable to express their feelings or why they are upset, and they show problem behaviors. So what can I do for them?
So this is for children
with autism.
Oh, with autism, yeah. That's not my area of expertise, autism, but and so I'm not even sure if I can give a really good answer. But I do have a nephew that has a form of Asperger's. The key is really listening to him. And when I work with him is to try not to ever change plans. If I have plans, I try not to change them. If they get changed, he is so angry because he's focused on something you've said. And I try my best not to change plans with him and change things. Someone's talking, so it's a little hard for me to respond. It says, if you use communication boards, you can use them and use them. Yeah, communication boards. So my best response for children with autism and emotional intelligence is to really, again, use that empathy and to really try to communicate, try to find what engages them. I know that my nephew, sports engages him. There are other topics he doesn't even want to talk about. And so I try to focus on what interests him and try to go into his world and listen to him and honor my word when I say, do you want to go to lunch or do you want to do something? And try to understand where he's coming from. But again, it is, that's my best response. And again, I'm not in this field. So I hope that helped you.
Yes, sir. So, thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Great questions.
Hello, sir. There is one question. Suppose the boss in my organization gets some information through grapevine information system and takes some decision unanimously, which is not acceptable to me or to my fellow being. How should I convey my feeling to my boss?
So that's a tough one. That's really hard. I think it's about having the courage to stand up to him and say, this is what happened and I'm not happy. Now that is not easy because sometimes we're fearful of our jobs and fearful of losing our jobs or being ostracized or being, something happening against us. So that's where you can, you have to have the courage to stand up for that. You know, the grapevine is dangerous because a lot of times that information is not always accurate, but at the same time, the grapevine has some accuracy. And so, you know, what you want to do also is get some additional support, get others that can support you. And maybe if you're not happy with this, then have someone go with you to the boss and say, this is what has happened, and I'm not happy with this. Now, I don't know if you have a human resource department. You could get them involved, but that's also not easy either because you might be fearful of retaliation. But I think it comes with honesty and courage and using I messages. I heard this, I'm frustrated. I'd like to tell you about my misgivings on this and say that honestly. But again, it takes courage. It's not easy to do.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I hope that helps, and I wish you luck in that. All right, well, again, thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Khalid. Thank you, Matt Perlstein. Thank you, all of you, for listening to me. And I wish you the very best in the rest of
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All righty.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you
very
much,
Thank you,
All right,
Professor
take
Dr.
care.
Stephen,
My pleasure.
for your valuable lectures. Hope to meet you
one
in
question.
the next session or convenient session. Thanks. Bye.
স্যার আমার কি অবস্থা দেখুন, ভিতরে নেটওয়ার্ক পাওয়া যাচ্ছে না, এই বয়সে বাইরে এসে আমি ক্লাস করছি বাড়ির বাইরে।
Please listen. Listen carefully. We'll have our lunch break from 1 to 2. I think it's about 1 o'clock. So early it is finished. Half an hour before it is finished, I think.
It should be better. The study materials will be provided through WhatsApp.
Okay, Mr. Tapos,
স্যার
ওই আগে শেষ হয়ে গেল না 12:30 এখন, তাই না? হাফ অ্যান আওয়ার 12:30 এখন 12:30, তাই না?
ওই একটা থেকে দিয়ে দেই আর কি, দুটার পর দুটার দিকে দিয়ে দিই।
হ্যাঁ, 2টা থেকে স্টার্ট করব। এখন আমরা কি করব? আমাদের তো হাফ অ্যান আওয়ার, আমরা কি ক্লোজ করব লাঞ্চের জন্য এখন থেকে?
হ্যাঁ, এখন লাঞ্চ ব্রেক দিয়ে দেই।
হ্যাঁ, সেটাই বেটার। আমরা আধা ঘন্টা আগে থাকুক। আমরা ওই আরেকটা কি জানি বলে, হোয়াট আর দ্য সিসিআর দ্যাট পিপল আর শেয়ারিং ইন চ্যাট, আমি বুঝলাম না সিসিআর না সিএসআর। এনিওয়ে, so thank you very much, honored participants. We'll have lunch break from now on to 2 o'clock.
বললো এটা খুব শক্ত করা।
থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ স্যার।
2 o'clock will be coming again, right? 2 o'clock ito. Suppose 2টার সময় না ইন্ডিয়ান টাইম?
হ্যাঁ, আমাদের এখানে দুটার দিকে দুটা টাইম হবে।
দুটা। So we'll be coming IST. I'm talking about the IST timing. So we'll have lunch break till 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock, some resource person will be again. Please don't miss your time. Please try to join on time because all are valuable. Thank you for your patience, hearing, as well as your attendance and presence. So thank you very much.
হয়ে গেছে আজকে হয়ে গেল আজকে না।
ওকে স্যার, ওকে,
Thank you. Thank you.
ওকে,
Bye
থ্যাংক
bye.
ইউ, থ্যাংক ইউ,
Thank you, bye bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
থ্যাংক ইউ সো মাচ স্যার।
Okay, thank you. Please finish your lunch.
মিস্টার তাপস বর্মনকে বলছি স্টাডি মেটেরিয়ালটা দিয়ে দিন না হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে, তাহলে আমরা একটু দেখতে পারি।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, ওটা আমরা দিয়ে দিব।
এখনই দিয়ে দিন, টাইমটা রয়েছে তো।
আবার দুটো থেকে স্টার্ট হবে।
তাহলে আবার পরীক্ষায় সবাই ফেলই করবে।
স্টাডি মেটেরিয়ালটা ভালো করে দিন, তাহলে আমরা তো কিছু বুঝতে পারছি না ইংলিশে।
হ্যাঁ, অত
দুটো থেকে স্টার্ট হবে তো আবার।
ইন্ডিয়ান ইংলিশ তো ঠিক আছে, তাহলে বাইরের ইংলিশগুলো খুব বোঝা অসুবিধা হচ্ছে।
একটু পড়লেও তো বোঝা যায়।
হ্যাঁ, সেটাই।
একবার শুনলাম মাত্র, একবার যদি পড়ি, দেখা পড়া আর দেখা শোনা দুটোর মধ্যেই এটা আছে না, এফেক্ট।
सर हिंदी में बताइए, लंच हो गया है?
हाँ लंच हो गया, अभी लंच टाइम है, आप लोग अभी लीव हो जाइए। हाँ ग्रुप
थैंक यू सर।
दे देंगे।
कितने बजे फिर लगेगा सर, समाप्त होगा?
স্যার লিভ নিয়ে নেব স্যার।
हाँ लीव नहीं लीव नहीं।
স্যার বলছি ক্লাস কি 2টো থেকে স্টার্ট হবে
স্যার
আবার?
हाँ 2টো থেকে স্টার্ট হবে।
सर 2 बजे फिर खुलेगा सर लंच?
हाँ हाँ हाँ।
তাপস স্যার, কালকে
2
আপনি
बजे
বললেন
से।
যে অ্যাটেন্ডেন্স শিট আপনি পাঠিয়ে দেবেন হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে, কই দেখতে পেলাম না তো। কিভাবে অ্যাটেন্ডেন্স প্রসিডিওরটা হচ্ছে ঠিক একটু বুঝতে পারছি না আমরা।
আমরা এখান থেকে আমরা অ্যাটেন্ডেন্সটা নিয়ে যাচ্ছি।
আচ্ছা,
আমরা পুরো গ্রুপে শেয়ার করে দিই।
হ্যাঁ ওটা একটু শেয়ার করে দিলে একটু ভালো হয়, তাহলে বুঝতে পারবো যে অ্যাটেন্ডেন্সটা হলো কি হলো না, বুঝতে পারছি না আমরা যারা প্রেজেন্ট।
অ্যাবসেন্ট থাকে, যারা অ্যাবসেন্ট থাকে ওখানে আমরা মার্ক করে দিয়ে দিই, আর যারা
আচ্ছা,
প্রেজেন্ট থাকে ওটা প্রেজেন্টে থাকে।
তার মানে যাদের নাম ওখানে নেই তারা সবাই প্রেজেন্ট, তাই তো?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ, ওখানে যাদের কোনো
কালকে অ্যাটেন্ডেন্স বলতে দিয়েছিল ম্যাডাম।
না ম্যাডাম গ্রুপে, হ্যালো বলছি গ্রুপে শেয়ার করেছে তো, দেখুন।
কালকে আমার প্রেজেন্ট নিয়ে একটা সমস্যা হয়েছিল, ওটা আপনি প্রেজেন্ট দিয়ে দিয়েছেন?
হ্যাঁ ওটা প্রেজেন্ট দিয়ে দিয়েছেন।
আচ্ছা ধন্যবাদ।
सर कह रहे हैं
এখন লাঞ্চ ব্রেক
हो रहा है सर।
আমরা মিটিং বন্ধ করে দিচ্ছি।
তাপস স্যার, কালকে যারা ফেল করে তাদের আপনি নামগুলো দিলে ভালো হয়।
सर
আপনারা
सर
ওটা
कह रहे
অ্যাডমিনের সঙ্গে যোগাযোগ করবেন, অ্যাডমিনের সঙ্গে যোগাযোগ করবেন।
सर कह रहे हैं कि लंच हो गया है, फिर कितने बजे सर स्टार्ट होगा?
तो आप
हिंदी में
फॉलो
बता
कीजिए, ग्रुप फॉलो कीजिए, ग्रुप में हम दे देंगे, तो ग्रुप फॉलो कीजिए। ये कौन नाम है? Redmi 9 Pro, आपका नाम चेंज कीजिए, Redmi 9 Pro। आप पार्टिसिपेंट पे जाके आपका नाम चेंज कीजिए।
जी सर।
তাপস স্যার, আর
হ্যাঁ।
একটা কোয়েশ্চেন ছিল আমার। আগের দিন গ্রুপেতে দেখছিলাম অনেকজন ফেল আছে, তো সেই বাকি যারা ফেল নয় তারা কি প্রেজেন্ট, মানে পাস, যাদের নাম নেই? হ্যাঁ
আর যাদের যাদেরটা মার্ক কম আছে তাদেরটাই আমরা ফিল করে ওখানে দিয়ে দিই,
আর তার মানে বাকিরা পাস?
বাকিটা পাস।
থ্যাংক
আমরা মিটিংটা বন্ধ করে দিচ্ছি। and Redmi 9 Pro, Redmi 9, আপনার নামটা চেঞ্জ করবেন। আপনাকে এরপরে আমরা বের করে দেবো, আর ঢুকতে দেবো না।
স্যার আমি সুভাষিস ভট্টাচার্য বলছি।
হ্যাঁ শুভ, হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ বলুন।
স্যার বলছিলাম যে এই যে 100 আউট অফ 100 এর মানেটা কি? মানে এটা কি আমাদের মার্কস থাকবে আমাদের যে সিআরই পড়ে?
হ্যাঁ 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 হ্যাঁ,
পার কোশ্চেনে 10 মার্কস,
পার কোশ্চেন 10 মার্কস।
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার।
হ্যালো তাপস স্যার, হ্যালো হ্যালো তাপস স্যার, আমি সুদীপ্ত বলছিলাম। হ্যাঁ বলছিলাম কালকে যেমন অ্যাটেন্ডেন্স শিটে যেমন গ্রুপে দিয়েছিলেন, সেরকমই আমার মনে হলো যে সেরকমই যদি আপনার মার্কসটা যদি অ্যাটেন্ডেন্স শিটের মতন করে যদি দিয়ে দেন না, তাহলে আরো ভালো হবে। তাহলে মনে হয় না অন্যান্য যেন সমস্যা থাকবে না। স্যার আমি কি বলছি বুঝতে পারছেন
আপনারা
স্যার?
দেখতে পারবেন, আপনারা ফিল করে গিয়ে দেখতে পারবেন।
হ্যালো স্যার,
আপনারা যখন ওটা সাবমিট করবেন না তখন আপনারাই দেখতে পাবেন।
হ্যাঁ ওটা তো দেখতে পাচ্ছি, কারণ অনেকেই মনে হচ্ছে দুবিধা বলছে, তো আমার মনে হয় আমার তরফ থেকে এটা আমি আপনার সঙ্গে শেয়ার করলাম। যদি এটা যদি আপনি ওরকম করে গ্রুপে দিয়ে দেন না, তাহলে মনে হয় আরো ভালো হবে, প্রত্যেকে ক্লিয়ার হয়ে যাবে। হয়তো অনেকে ভাবছেন যে বোধহয় দেখতে পাচ্ছি না, সেই জন্য। এটা আপনার সঙ্গে সাজেশন না, এটা হচ্ছে একটা গেস্টিকের কথা বললাম আপনার সঙ্গে আমি।
Redmi 9 পাওয়ার এটা কি? এটাকে আমি বের করে দিচ্ছি, নামটা চেঞ্জ করে নি এখন।
এখন কি লিভ নিয়ে নেবো?
হ্যাঁ লিভ নিয়ে নিন, লিভ নিয়ে নিন।
হ্যাঁ ওকে স্যার।
স্যার হ্যালো হ্যালো স্যার।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ বলেন।
স্যার আমি মামুনি হালদার পাইক বলছি। স্যার কালকে যে কোশ্চেন পেপারটা দেওয়া হয়েছিল আমি ওটা ওপেন করতে পারিনি, দেখলাম যে ক্লোজ বলে লেখা আছে, পেজ ক্লোজ।
কালকে ওপেন করতে পারিনি। সবাইকে ওপেন করে আপনি
আরেকবার যদি বলেন।
বললাম যে ওটা তো কালকে সবাই ওপেন করে সাবমিট করে দিয়েছে, আপনি একটু অ্যাডমিনের সঙ্গে একটু যোগাযোগ করুন।
কার সাথে যোগাযোগ করব?
অ্যাডমিন
স্যার বুঝতে পারলাম না।
বললাম যে অ্যাডমিন আছে ওনার সঙ্গে একটু যোগাযোগ করুন।
হ্যালো স্যার। হ্যালো স্যার।
হ্যাঁ
স্যার আমি মঙ্গলময় ঘোষ বলছিলাম।
হ্যাঁ মঙ্গলময় ঘোষ, হ্যাঁ বলেন।
হ্যাঁ স্যার, বলছি যে আপনারা যে সার্টিফিকেটটা প্রোভাইড করবেন,
হ্যাঁ
সেখানে তো আমার নাম এবং আমার সিআরআর নাম্বারটা থাকবে, তাই তো স্যার?
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ।
ওখানে তো বাকি অন্য কিছু তথ্য বা ইয়ে তো থাকবে না, বা
ওখানে ডেটটা থাকবে।
হ্যাঁ ডেটটা থাকবে অবশ্যই, কোন তারিখ থেকে 15 থেকে 17। আর স্যার নাম থাকবে আর সিআরআর নাম্বারটা থাকবে, বাকি ওখানে মার্কস তো থাকে না দেখেছি আমি অন্য জায়গায়।
হ্যালো স্যার। হ্যালো
ঠিক আছে স্যার, ধন্যবাদ।
হ্যালো স্যার। হ্যাঁ সুদীপ ধারা বলছি আমি কি থেকে। হ্যালো
হ্যালো
হ্যাঁ
বলেন।
আমি বলছি আপনার 3 দিন পরে তো সার্টিফিকেট পোস্ট মারফত দিয়ে দেবেন আমার এখানে। পোস্ট মারফত এখানে আসবে নাকি আমার যে সার্টিফিকেট পাওয়ার ক্ষেত্রে?
না আমরা একটা হোয়াটসঅ্যাপে পাঠিয়ে দিব, আপনি হোয়াটসঅ্যাপ থেকে
আচ্ছা
ক্লিক করে
হ্যাঁ
তারপর আপনাকে মেলে পাঠানো, ওখান থেকে ডাউনলোড করে নিন।
আচ্ছা স্যার বলছি আমার তো সবার নাম আছে, আমার তো নাম আমার দেখতে পাচ্ছেন না, আমার নাম থাকবে না।
আপনার নামটা দেখেন, আপনার নাম রিয়েলমি C2 আছে, আপনি পার্টিসিপেন্টে যাবেন, পার্টিসিপেন্টে গিয়ে ক্লিক করে ওখানে রিনেম অপশন আছে, রিনেম অপশনে গিয়ে আপনার নামটা চেঞ্জ করবেন, না হলে কিন্তু আপনি অ্যাবসেন্ট হয়ে যাবেন।
আচ্ছা স্যার এটা কি করতে হবে একটু বলুন।
একটু পার্টিসিপেন্টে যাবেন, নিচে দেখবেন পার্টিসিপেন্ট অপশন আছে, ওখানে পার্টিসিপেন্ট অপশনে ক্লিক করবেন, প্রথমে আপনার নামটা আসবে, ওখানে আবার ক্লিক করবেন, তারপরে দেখবেন রিনেম বলে একটা অপশন আছে, রিনেমে গিয়ে আপনার নামটা ওখানে লিখে দিবেন, তাহলে হয়ে যাবে, দিয়ে ওকে করে দিবেন।
হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে স্যার। আমার নাম
আপনি এখনই করে দিন।
হ্যাঁ আমার নাম সুদীপ ধারা, হুগলি থেকে বলছি আমি। হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ
বললাম যে পার্টিসিপেন্ট ক্লিক করেন।
হ্যাঁ
পার্টিসিপেট
বললাম যে এখনই করেন, পার্টিসিপেন্টে ক্লিক করেন।
হ্যাঁ পার্টিসিপেট ক্লিক করেছি।
ক্লিক করেন, দেখেন উপরে আপনার নামটা আসবে, রিয়েলমি C2।
হ্যাঁ রিয়েলমি
আবার ক্লিক করেন।
হ্যাঁ
ওখানে আবার ক্লিক করেন, নিচে দেখবেন একটা রিনেম অপশন আছে, রিনেম। হ্যাঁ রিনেমে গিয়ে আপনার নামটা লিখে নেবেন। রিনেম করে ওকে করে দিন।
হবে
यार नंबर
2-3 दिन পরে
ইয়ার আর নম্বরটা দিতে হবে?
না সিএর নাম্বারটা দিতে হবে না, আপনার নামটা দিয়ে
দিলে হবে। স্যার গেছে স্যার?
হ্যাঁ এখানে কিন্তু রিয়েলমি C2টা কেটে দিন না, রিয়েলমি C2টা কেটে দিন।
হ্যাঁ রিয়েলমি
আবার পার্টিসিপেন্টে যান।
कोई दिक्कत नहीं, ठीक है। आप प्रेजेंट रहेगा तो दिक्कत नहीं है, आप प्रेजेंट नहीं खाता तो दिक्कत नहीं है।
স্যার
এটা ক্যান্সেল করে দেবো?
হ্যাঁ বললাম যে আপনি আবার পার্টিসিপেন্টে যান।
হ্যাঁ
পার্টিসিপেন্টে গিয়ে
হ্যাঁ
উপরে দেখেন আপনার নামটা আসছে, তারপরে দেখেন রিনেম, আর রিনেমে গিয়ে রিয়েলমি C2টা কেটে দিন।
হ্যাঁ
আর রিয়েলমি C2টা কেটে দিন, তাহলে শুধু আপনার নামটা থাকবে আর কি।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা
হ্যাঁ এখন আসছে।
হয়েছে স্যার?
হ্যাঁ এখন হয়েছে।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে স্যার। স্যার নেটের প্রবলেম তো আমার এখানে, তাহলে আমি কালকে সারাদিন প্রায় ছিলাম। হ্যাঁ নেটের মাঝে প্রবলেম আছে, আজকে কিন্তু ঠিক আছে।
হ্যালো
স্যার ওই যে স্যার আসছে ফেল মানে কি, ওদের যে পাশাপাশি ফেল আসছে কথাটা?
ওরা ইভ্যালুয়েশন শীটটা যখন সাবমিট করতেছে না, ওদের স্কোরটা কম আসছে, 70% কম আসছে, তো এর জন্য ফেল এসেছে।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা আচ্ছা
যখন ফেল আসবে তখন আপনারা দ্বিতীয়বার আবার সাবমিট করবেন।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা। আর স্যার আমার ঠিক আছে তো?
হ্যাঁ ঠিক আছে।
আচ্ছা আচ্ছা ঠিক আছে।
হ্যালো
হ্যাঁ থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার, থ্যাংক ইউ।
হ্যালো
থ্যাংক ইউ স্যার।
হ্যালো স্যার, আমি দীপেন বলছি।
হ্যাঁ হ্যাঁ বলুন।
বলি কালকে আমি রেজাল্টটাতে কিছুই মানে ইয়ে পেলাম না, রেজাল্টটা পেলামই না, ফেল পাস কিছুই দেখতে পেলাম না আমারটাতে।
আপনি অ্যাডমিনের সঙ্গে একটু যোগাযোগ করেন, বলে দিবে।
ঠিক 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 আছে।